Hi, Jeff Fedorov from Earthwalker. I'd like to talk a little bit about working with simple elements of stone, various types. We can start out by talking about basic techniques, taking a river stone and displacing a small flake off of it to make a cutting edge, to a little bit more advanced techniques of pecking to make depressions and indentations to make simple mechanical advantages for you, all the way to more advanced stuff like working with raw obsidian to make arrowheads. So we'll get into it. Hope you learned something. Alright, so let's first talk about some very simple techniques of hammering off. There's a fancy word I'll throw at you called a discoidal flake. Just a fancy word I've heard in the flint knapping vocabulary. I'm hanging around these guys. Now, a discoidal flake is basically just a chip of rock that you've hit off in such a way that it can be useful for you. Or it can be the process of chipping pieces off a bigger mass so you can achieve, say like a longer point. All right, just keep hitting off discoidal flakes. Now there's a basic technique is just hitting them together and bashing them, but often what you'll get is chaos. So there's a little bit of order to this. There's a hammerstone like this. Okay, I'm by the river, so it's easy to find a nice stone that feels good, nice weight to it. Now the technique is using an arc, okay, because there's something called a Hertzen cone. It's a basic principle in physics that comes into play even with this primitive stonework. The ancient people just knew it by instinct. Now some scientist named Hertzen cone has coined the physics principle. Now basically what it means is that if you shoot a BB through a piece of glass, you can see the entry is a small hole and the exit is a cone shape, and that's basically the Hertzen cone. It's basically when any physics of a strike goes forward, it just gets displaced in a consistent way, consistent arc. So if I were just to hammer into this stone, the energy wants to displace like that. So keeping that instinct in mind, you can translate it to work for your advantage. Now, I've already found a stone that I've worked a little bit, but what I like about this is there's more or less this 90-degree angle going on here. And so the idea is to be able to arc and hit a piece off the bottom of this and end up with like a quarter to a silver dollar size discoidal flake that is useful. It's basically a primitive pocket knife. All right, so let's get into this. As I was hitting that, the end of this stone chipped off, and I could actually use that as a very primitive point if I worked a little bit further. Sometimes the chaos can work for you. So I'm going to continue to chip away at this thing, and I'll show you. Here, let me try this again. Okay, this is a good one. Just flew off the edge of this. What you're going to do is you're going to find the sharpest part of that, something that fits in your hand. You can even take some leather and put the leather on there to protect your finger, but you can definitely shave some bark with this thing. Cut cordage, skin a squirrel if you really had to. It's not a surgeon's scalpel or anything, but it definitely does the job. If I lost my knife, this is the first thing I'd run to. I'd go to a stone, hit off a discoidal flake, I'd have a cutting edge. So next I'd like to show you the concept of pecking. Now I found a round stone like this. Whenever I find round stones like this that look like they'd fit in the palm of my hand well, I think bow drill socket. Now something like this was really valuable for indigenous peoples because it's the toughest piece to replicate and find. Of course you could always use wood, but wood is not optimal because it causes so much friction on the wrong side of the fire by friction kit. So I actually turned this rock over and I was pleased to find a little bit of like this cleavage here, this little natural indentation that I've since worked a little bit. Now pecking is, in the simplest form, is just finding another stone like this with an edge and working that cleavage to your advantage and making a deeper depression where a end of a socket for a fire drill will go. Now literally, like most of these ancient techniques, you have to think of a different sense of time. You have to you can't think instant gratification, push button results here. You have to count to 100, maybe 10 times, make a rhythm of it, whatever it takes to get yourself in the mindset and meditation of pecking this thing to your advantage. But honestly, it wouldn't take that much more work to work with this because it's already really good. I just want to make it a little bit more smooth so it doesn't slip out. So that's pecking. Now pecking was also used, say something like this. You'd peck around this area here and then take a nice willow wrap, young sapling, and you'd actually peck this as well to have an edge, and this would be a primitive axe. Now it wouldn't be razor, really sharp like what we think of, but it would do the job. That's basically what the technique would come into play in this kind of tool as well. Imagine this with a handle. Now, obsidian, here's some I've harvested recently. Looks really raw on the outside, but trust me, it's black as night on the inside. This stuff is really rare to find. I mean, if you know where to look, you can find it. Wherever there's volcanic activity in the ring of fire in the Pacific, you can find some. Here's some other obsidian. So this stuff is razor sharp. It's the sharpest thing on Earth. It fractures down to the last molecule. So you have to be really, really careful with this stuff. Eye protection, hand protection is advisable when working with this stuff. It's basically glass on steroids. It's really amazing stuff. So the discoidal flake principle that I was demonstrating earlier comes into play with obsidian as well. Of course, whenever you're making flakes, you got to be really conscientious of where those are going to shatter. But here's an example of a nice discoidal flake that I got off a larger mass of obsidian. And this would be ready to pressure flake. It's another principle in stone working. It's the fine tuning, if you will. Leather, protect my hand. I like a little platform in my hand. There's just a little bit of oak. And ancient peoples would work with antler because it's soft enough but hard enough. Soft enough to grab and hard enough to do the job. Now, I'll demonstrate a couple pressure flakes without making too much of a mess here. This isn't the ideal place to work. But you always want a sandstone. Sand your edge you're going to work just to create a little platform. Pressure, flake. So just peeled off a little bit there. And it's slow, methodical work. It's really a meditation that hours slip away. You just get into the mindset of progress one chip at a time, and it's really a beautiful, beautiful meditation. I don't have any of my demonstration pieces here, but my longest points are about like that, and so I'm I'm slowly learning over the years and years. You can work with glass, the ends of glass bottles. I can make a point out of that. Same thing in green. So it's a fun art. Here's another discoidal flake. Some of this obsidian comes in various kinds and types. Some has white lacing, some has red, some's more translucent and clear, some's just more dark. I love this stuff. But jasper, flint, all of that can be napped as well for arrow points. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to find a better location to work with this obsidian, someplace I can collect all the chips and safely discard them. So I'll be back. Alright, I'm set up a little bit better to catch some flakes so I can discard them properly. I like to dig a hole and take all the sharp discoidal flakes and put them in the hole. Some nappers state that throw some pennies in there with the hole so no archaeologists find that and think that there was a village there, when in actuality we're just doing some modern day kind of napping. So, got a glove. So this is a piece of obsidian I found out near Napa, actually. There's a lot of volcanic activity, geothermal activity, so you find some if you know where to look. Hammerstone. So I'll open this up and you'll see what it looks like. Use kind of an arc, hopefully just shave off a piece here, we'll see. Doesn't always go as you plan. Alright, not bad. So open that up, you see beautiful discoidal flake, just shaved right off. Boom. So I can take this now and clean it up and pressure flake it down. Now this stuff is razor sharp, like I said, the sharpest thing on earth, but it's actually pretty brittle. So that's why you'd need to serrate it down and pressure flake it so it's more durable. Found a nice little spot next to the river here, getting the meditation of flint napping in the shade. I'm going to show you the end product. This one's made out of a glass beer bottom. Also did one in white. Made a little obsidian bird point. Just had a little flake to work with. The tools I used was a rock as a billet, the pressure flaker, copper on one side, antler on the other. If you want to learn more about flint napping, I encourage you to take one of the Earthwalker courses. I teach workshops in flint napping a few times a year. So I hope to see you out here. Take care.